Hello, everyone. Welcome back, CSFL. We're here today with yet another episode of the CSFL podcast. Coming back from what was a crazy Super Bowl in the end, into the off-season and free agency now, and to try and break down some of the free agency action that has happened before the draft, I'm joined by none other than the Titans GM, Josh. Josh, welcome back. Good to have you
Thank
back
you.
on the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I'm looking forward to having a good talk with you. Free agency's been really cool to watch so far.
It really has. I mean, it's been a crazy one. I mean, we've talked before about how this season and probably next season are probably the last two really crazy free agencies I think we'll expect, given that the league started a couple of years ago and those contracts are starting to come off the books now into free agency. And we're going to try and break it down. I know you've put together a list of 4 teams that perhaps would be interesting to talk about. So should we start off with those and talk about why you think they've had an interesting off season already, even before we've got to the draft?
Yeah, I think that that's a good place to start off with because I think that some of the contending teams and some of the newer GMs just really put themselves in a position that they're gonna make some noise next year. So that's worth talking about before the draft even comes.
Yeah, absolutely. So should we crack on and what team is the first one that sort of is stuck in your mind as having an interesting off season so far, with,
All
with
right.
with moves and signings?
All right, so I don't want to start off with the usual suspects because we kind of talk discuss them ad nauseum. So I'm going to go with the Texans as the first team. I think that is worth mentioning. That's happening. What in my opinion, definitely make sure I couch it that way. Is my opinion as a great off season. I've really liked a lot of their moves, and it's kind of made me a bit worried about the competitiveness of my division. Well, worried in a good way. I'm happy that the parity of the league is increasing because, as I'll talk about later, there's some teams that are really, really going to push the league to improve again.
Yeah, and I mean, just to break down some of the Texans signings before you sort of dive into the detail. I mean, I guess the notable one is the Sean McCoy, the star running back that they've managed to acquire. Also brought in Andrew Quarles, Victor Cruz, and Golden Tate. Really good offensive players for them.
Hmm.
And then also brought in Kerry Rosa, an underrated free safety, really, in my opinion. So a couple of tidy signings and at tidy values. And obviously we can also talk about the trade as well that they've made as before the free agency even started, moving up to grab that number 1 pick as well.
Yep, and I think that that's what you kind of have to keep in the back of your mind as you look at all of their moves because they didn't really have a bad defensive roster to start off with. And so all of their moves, they've snapped up some just really good solid offensive pieces, and they've done it on 6-year contracts, 7-year contracts. So these guys are going to be there probably for the rest of their careers. And then on top of that, they have the coup de grace coming when they take Andrew Luck number 1. So they're gonna I know he says that they're rebuilding, but when you've already got the team built, New England just showed us the quarterback can come in there and just start pick up from day one if he's good enough. And with Luck looking at a 25, he looks like he's going to at least be at Russell Wilson's level.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know the Texans GM. He's come in and he's essentially said he's going to take Andrew Luck number 1. I'll be surprised, obviously, if he doesn't, based
I'd,
on the way he's built so far. But I
I'd,
think,
I'd be shocked.
yeah, I think we'd all be shocked. I mean, look, we've seen the scouting report so far in terms of what we can see from our coaches, and we all agree that he looks like, in terms of the rating, around that 25 mark, which is comparable to, as you said, to Russell Wilson last year. So
Yeah,
if he's anywhere near that, then it's a no-brainer, really.
at worst he's Pat Devlin, and like,
Hey, don't rib on Pat Devlin. He almost took Rookie of the Year that couple of seasons
exactly.
ago.
And so I didn't mean that in a bad way. I told you that was a guy I wanted to draft. So I'm just saying, worst case scenario, he's Pat Devlin.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty nice floor.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess for me, the move that I was really impressed with, from the Texans in particular, was the one that they've just made. So obviously they did the Andrew Luck trade and moved up a couple of places there. Made the free agency signings we'll talk about in a minute. But for me, the other trade that really signified, okay, this is a GM who's come in, he knows what he's doing, he knows exactly what strategy he's going to do, how he's going to set this team up, is it was trading for Mr. Faneka. A minor move, really. He kind of lucked out because the Saints had that crazy signing period 2 Sims ago. But, taking the opportunity there to get someone like Finecca, I know he's 37, but he still is a elite guard. So, Andrew Luck is coming into the league with Finecca sitting in front of him, and Burke, who's no slouch either, really. So, he's got the line there. He's brought in the offensive talent as well. So it's an exciting time for Houston, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that goes to show you that trades are about relationships. I think Rouse, having known him from another league, when that trade thing happened, with the signing thing happened, he was, probably going to reach out to a bunch of GMs who had cap space, and the Texans, him knowing him, was probably the first one he reached out to, and they just immediately snapped them up. So it's value your trade relationships and make sure you treat GMs right, and things available will pop up to you real quick.
So. Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with that. It's down to that relationship with other GMs and just being quite fair and quite open with people, really. And I think that's how the Texans managed to pick up Finecca.
Yeah, being available, because he that was just he probably was online when Rouse was looking. So
exactly.
But I like what they're building over there. So the second team that was on my list, we'll go with one of the teams that we all know about, was the Packers. That team, it's kind of crazy to say for 2 off seasons in a row they've improved, but 2 off seasons in a row they've improved. So
yeah, and a different end of the spectrum as well in comparison to the Texans. It's a team that, unfortunately, due to the wonderful game logic bug in terms of playoffs, didn't get that automatic slot. They had to go through the wild card and got bumped out. So unfortunate for the Packers last year, but to follow it up with some of the signings they've made, been interesting. Team that's on the edge, probably pushing for a Super Bowl. Picking up a trio of guys, really. Santonio Holmes, who's a pretty good replacement for the outgoing Jennings. James Harrison they've brought in, who I had last year, who's massively underrated in my opinion. And then Matt Light, the quality tackle that he is, really, utilizing the opportunity that New England had a couple of their line going to free agency.
Yep, and Matt Light is supremely underrated too. He also has the bookend tackle flag, so he probably won't play out the full 3 years of that contract. But I'm looking at this from the standpoint of is your team reaching your goal? And the Green Bay is a team that's Super Bowl or bust right now. So maybe they haven't had as many signings as other teams, but the 3 signings that they did have are 3 players who are probably going to have a direct impact on their team this season, on the team that was pretty really, really good. So, you're worried that Aaron got injured last season. So what do? You go out and you pick up probably the second, third best tackle in the entire league.
Yeah, and you go and give him another great offensive option because he's losing Jennings. I mean, it's a masterful stroke, really, in my opinion. I guess the only thing that we can probably comment on, which is in my opinion probably a minor thing, but obviously lost the cornerback Woodson, which is a big loss. But I mean, that's something I feel they can probably draft, to be honest with you,
and that's what I was thinking, and that's what I was thinking as well. If we're I know we're discussing free agency, but I think we can kind of just see where the logical steps are going to come, and they're one of those teams that haven't really given up a lot of their picks, so they should be in a good position to plug whatever holes they have left. Which I love the way the NFL does their free agency compared to like the NBA. Like you get to have free agency and then you have the draft, so you use the draft to plug your holes, and then you have free agency again. So anything that you didn't get to cover, you get to go at it one more time. So
and I think it makes the draft more focused as well, because as you said, you go for the guys you really want. If you lose out to them, you go, okay, well, I need X position to fill a gap, I just draft that, which is kind of makes sense because the NFL draft is 7 rounds long, isn't it? So you have more scope to pick up various, either you might not get the elite talent, but you can definitely fill up like 5 or 6 players who can fill the roster for you.
And with that being said, I was just kind of really surprised at how many teams were going for backups. during the first free agency period. Like, I don't want to. I'm not going to single any out because there's been a lot of teams that have done it, and but you kind of see some of the contracts offered, and then you see like a guy that's rated 90 speed, 87 overall, going for the same money, to a contender. You're just like, oh man, like how did that happen? So just I think that as we all get better at the game, I think one of the things that I have learned is that unless you're already at a point where you don't, you just aren't working with a lot, like I was this off season, maybe save those signings for the second free agency.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's always guys lingering around in the sort of second period of free agency who can do a job anyway. So if you don't fill out the guys in the draft, you miss the player you wanted at a certain position. There's always a guy in a position towards the end of the free agency period anyway.
Yeah, no, I was talking to Rouse about that just yesterday through the Slack. That one of the guys that he and I were both targeting all through first free agency. He didn't actually end up signing to like the end of second free agency for an incredibly cheap contract. I think I ended up beating Rouse for him, and I got him for like $500,000, and he ended up having a multi-tackle, multi-sack season for me. So it behooves you just to be patient, I guess. Like,
yeah.
I wish I had the cap space to try to have gone for some of the bigger fish that were out there this time. But again, that's my opinion. Everyone builds teams differently. So
yeah, we'll come back to I think those points later on. I mean, just bringing it slightly back to the Packers. I mean, I guess the interesting thing is now, have they got enough elite talent now? I mean, 2 seasons you could probably argue that unfortunately the Packers GM has lost Rodgers at crucial times. To be honest with you, that's been the downfall of this team, which is quite ironic with the Packers. But
kind of makes you wonder if he's going to draft a quarterback in this draft.
Yeah,
just to be safe.
I mean,
might not be bad.
I mean, he's got, like you said, he's all his first round picks. I mean, there are some okay quarterbacks called into sort of Dylan's write up. For those who haven't seen it, go and check that out on the forum. Who outside of Pryor and Luck, probably the two that Dylan highlighted as probably your top 15 guys. But there are some other quarterbacks that are probably serviceable, I would imagine, based on that. So it could be an option.
I think it's kind of gone under the radar, but we've had a few. Quite a few undrafted quarterbacks actually be pretty good in just the few seasons that we've had. I mean, and Devlin was a late round pick. Locker went 3-1 for me, and he was a 6th or 7th round pick. Jimmy Clausen won games for Rouse, and he was a low pick. So I mean, they're out there.
Yeah. And absolutely. And I think it'd be interesting to see what the Packers do in the draft, whether that's the route they go, whether they try and get another piece. I mean, for me, I think he'll go probably cornerback in the first round if I was a guessing man, just because that is a gap. They've got a couple, like 2 or 3 decent players there in terms of speed, but I wouldn't want Brown doing anything too major for them at cornerback. So I'd probably look to shore that up first. But later rounds, I can certainly see them trying to throw the dice on a quarterback just to support Rodgers.
No, definitely. And I think there's a lot of teams that in our league that build through the draft, and I think that's kind of like probably the differences in a lot of our philosophies. I think some of our aren't as trade happy, are as free agency happy as some of us are. So. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think the draft is an interesting one, and we'll see probably some teams will try and draft aggressively this year. I guess my only thing would be about there's some teams here who I think have focused a lot on trying to re-sign their guys, and if evidence to go with this free agency so far, it might not be the best way to re-sign guys. It might be better to let them walk and just take the salary and throw it at someone else.
I think I learned that the style that I done originally in the league might not have been the best one after kind of observing what the Broncos and some of the other teams did, just walking into free agency with so much cap space and then just throwing out deals to guys who are equivalently as good as the guys that you lost, or trying to get them back on cheap contracts. It actually seems to work pretty well. So I'm kind of reevaluating what I might do going forward.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So let's move on. What's your third team on your list so far?
The third team was actually the one I just mentioned, the Broncos, who I just think have had the best free agency of any team so far. The
So
players that they've brought in.
before we talk about the actual Broncos signings, I have to ask, with Mr. Finnegan, did you manage to get a deal to get him, or is that a case that the Broncos have snatched him from you? Because I know you were aggressively trying to find a trade partner if they did sign him to bring him back. Because I know we've talked about it. He's one of your favorite players. So did that happen, or have the Broncos stolen him from you?
Yeah, actually, he was pretty. We were pretty cool about it. He messaged me, and I think that he, because of the time zone differences, he didn't notice that I responded back. So I went ahead and moved on with my plan and made some signings, and then he kind of messaged me back like, hey, I wouldn't mind moving him considering some of the players that you've gotten. So we might negotiate that in the future. I'm not sure. I kind of I'd have to massage my cap to squeeze him in there now as much as I want to. So I don't know. We'll still have his going for. But
we'll see.
Yeah, it was. I tried my best. Yeah, I tried my best.
Okay.
I might have to reapproach him next year because I think he's only on a 1-year contract. But
he is. Yeah.
I'd like it if he and just some backstory behind that. He's an undersized cornerback, and I loved watching him as a kid. And he actually, I think, got into a fight with one of the players on my team. He's actually pretty famous for Andre Johnson, and pretty sure he got his butt whooped because Andre Johnson's like 6'4", 200 something pounds. But
yeah.
Kind of a vanity thing.
We just had another guest join us on the show, Josh. So we've got awesome. Jed, the Colts GM. How are you, Jed?
I'm good. I'm tired. I'm still trying to adjust to being in a different time zone.
Oh no.
Oh man, welcome though.
Yeah, welcome to the show. Good
to be here.
So we're just going through. Josh had a list of 4 teams that he thought were interesting to talk about from free agency so far. And we've just talked about 2 of them. We're just on the Broncos now at the moment in terms of the crazy free agency signings they've made. I'm sure you've been watching it, being in that conference as well. What are your views on the Broncos signing so far?
Well, I think they're going to be hard to beat. And I think I mean, they just went undefeated, and now they're looking like they might go undefeated for 2 seasons.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping we'd go for a while without back-to-back champions, but man, that I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, the guys they've signed, so we can talk about them. So we talked about Finnegan. I mean, obviously Charles Woodson, elite cornerback, Darren Sharper, an elite free safety, Mike Wallace, who's a really good wide receiver.
Franchise tagged Bailey. I mean, I feel like that counts as a free agency signing.
Yeah, franchise tag Bailey. So really, I mean, the only guy who's really lost is Dockett, isn't it? I think in terms of real vital pieces from last year.
Yeah, and he replaced him with a player who was almost exactly the same in Woodson, so wasn't a super loss.
And then let's not forget he has the number 9 pick in the draft as well, so he's going to add some talent there as well. I mean, it's really hard to tell how this team looks at the moment because of the wonderful strong safety bug that he uses, and anyone who doesn't use that, go and have a look at the guide we've put up because kind of explains a little bit of that. But they're going to be in pretty strong shape this year. What do you guys think? Do you think anyone can actually challenge this Broncos team this year?
I don't know, but I'm going to work my butt off in week 4 to try and beat him.
that's for sure. I'm me saying that I think they're in it to win. It doesn't mean I'm not going to try to beat them. I think that having 3 insane receivers like I have now, I'm probably a little bit more equipped to try to keep up with the speed of that defense than most. So we'll see what happens.
So which signing do you think was the most impactful one that they've had apart from the franchise tag?
Woodson.
Yeah,
I just really think highly of Woodson as a player. When I was sitting down making my list of free agents I wish I could sign if I had more cap, but he was actually number 1. I would have gone after him aggressively.
Yeah,
I went
and
after him, but not for that much money.
yeah, well, I mean, I'm a little bit bitter about this one because Woodson is like one of my all-time favorite players, being a Michigan fan.
Didn't you miss him by like $100,000 or something like that?
I got stumped by $40,000 in this one.
Woo!
So, he signed for 2 years at 9 million and 40,000. I had 9 million offering for him, and I think it might have been 2 years as well, if I remember. So, no, you beat me by $40,000. So we were close. So I guess so. Josh, you said Woodson. I mean, Jed, do you agree Woodson was probably the best signing from the Broncos?
Yeah. I think him. The others, Mike Wallace is decent. You got a decent receiver, but the most impactful is definitely going to be Woodson.
Mm-hmm.
I think cornerbacks are a big need in a passing league, and it's going to make his defense that much tougher.
Yeah, we've had nothing but an influx of really good quarterbacks coming in since the league has started. So, I mean, just the more you can do, and not to mention, he kind of showed us all that you could take a safety and plug him in at linebacker and get 15 sacks last season. So, watching him double down and triple down on that strategy, and it's kind of just been like, oh man, I've got to go against that on I think week 2.
Yeah, because I mean his offense doesn't look all mind-blowing amazing, when you look at it off the cuff. But
go ahead. I'm sorry.
He's got a defense that, Champ Bailey, Charles Woodson, Darren Sharper. I mean, you've got a dream team of Hall of Famers like in your secondary.
Yeah, and I was thinking, I was like, he, personally, like, because I like to, kind of sit down and, if I was this GM, because I try to, when I team build, I try to look at what other teams are doing, because you have to build against the team that you're going up against. So when I see him do that, I have to make a move, that kind of corresponds to
which
it.
is probably why you got Reggie Wayne from me.
Yeah, no, that is exactly why I got Reggie Wayne originally, was to counteract the team speed, the speed that he had on defense, based off our game, because every time we play each other, he and I, it's usually a one possession game when it comes down to it. So that was the intent there. And after he made this move, I immediately reached out and tried to get Antonio Gates, but KW beat me there. So I was like, let me figure out what I could do. But going back to him, I think that if I were Noah, and I have again no idea what he's doing, just going off my opinion, he's probably going to use his whole draft to revamp his offense, and because just all those top picks.
Oh my gosh, I hadn't even known he looks like that in the draft either.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's why I was watching free agency, and I was just like, he's cherry picking all the good defensive players on really good contracts, and he has all of those picks. And I was like, I think I can see what the strategy is, man. That's well done, like because he was allowed to execute it. So you can only applaud that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough when any team wins a Super Bowl and then manages to acquire some of the guys that he has managed to get. They're going to be tough to beat again. We'll see. I mean, I think there's some teams in the conference that could certainly challenge him.
I think there's like 9 really good teams in the AFC, like that could win any week. So
yeah. Okay, so we move on to your fourth team that you had.
Right.
Interesting ones for free agency.
And my last one was the Saints. I was a little worried about them losing Breeze, and they Rouse is very, very good at his run game. That's one thing. Everyone kind of looked at Breeze, and Breeze is putting up insane numbers, but
in the college game.
Yeah, he took Reggie Bush, and Reggie Bush was a monster when he had him, and he lost Reggie Bush, and we thought that that was going to be it. And then he got a new running back, and that guy put up almost the same numbers as Reggie Bush. So like he's just really good at getting his run game going, and we gave him probably the second best running back in the league, maybe number 1, number 2. And then he was able to line that up with one of the best guards in the league, and then one of the second best guards in the league. So he, rebuilt his offensive line completely around the run, and I just thought that was really impressive because losing Breeze, a lot of people would have oh my God, I lost my Super Bowl MVP who retired early. What am I gonna do? All right, I'm gonna completely switch my style of play and become I'm just gonna become just total smash mouth.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it. Being in that conference. The Packers we talked about have had a fantastic offseason, and the Saints have had a fantastic offseason so far. I mean, I guess it was a bit of a shock because I've never seen a team sign so many good free agents in one sim. In all my single player games, I mean, I've seen teams sign maybe one or two good players. I've never seen them sign like what was essentially five good players in one sim, and two in the same position, which is interesting. I've never seen that really. So I think that was a bit of a shock, and I think it took Rouse by a bit of a shock. Hence why he had to make the move get rid of Faneka just to get the salary back. Mm-hmm. But they are in fantastic shape. I mean, there are some good quarterbacks in free agency that I'm sure he'll pick up one of them. He'll be just fine. And then he's obviously got some draft picks to play with as well. So, yep. I mean, this team is definitely better than the team last year, minus the quarterback, in my opinion.
Yeah, perennial contender.
Mm-hmm. So could we have the Broncos and the Saints back to back all winning seasons with no losses? Could that happen?
My prediction is Packers Broncos. I think I've already said that just early because we haven't seen the draft or the second free agency or any of that. But today,
where we're at now, yeah. I mean, I'm going to keep going with the Saints because the Saints have demonstrated every season that this league's been in. I mean, he's been to the Super Bowl every year or conference championship. Like, I think Rouse is going to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, I think he got stunned by the Cardinals this
week. I couldn't believe that. Cardinals going from the wild card to Super Bowl and couldn't quite pull it out against the Broncos. But I was surprised to see that undefeated Saints team go down.
Yeah, I just could only imagine how that would have played out in real life. Just, oh my God.
It just shows you.
Well, and the potential we had to have two 16-0 teams in the Super Bowl. I mean, that's just. Yeah, that's unheard of.
Yeah,
I was really looking forward to watching that game actually because I thought it was just a sure thing that it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Same here.
I mean, it really shows. I mean, one of the things the development team have said in one of their live streams for the game is that it's not just about the personnel; it's also about the game planning and strategy. And for me, that is exactly what the Cardinals did. They spent the time, they strategized against the Saints. And the strategy worked. Unfortunately, they came up short against the Broncos, but it just shows that you might not have the same level of talent, but if you have the right game plan and right strategy, you can win. You can win in any league, really.
Oh yeah,
and I mean, looking at that Super Bowl, the few of the we won't harp on the kicking decisions because any given Sunday, there's no telling what could have happened. Someone could have fumbled. There's no telling how the whole thing would have played out differently. But there were some really horrible kicking decisions in that game, and their game planning for the Broncos was actually pretty darn good.
Yeah. Cool. So we've gone through sort of 4 teams.
It was a close game.
Yeah.
So we've gone through sort of 4 teams that Josh you had on your list as interesting ones for free agency. I guess now Jed, you've joined us. Are there any teams or any sort of signings you want to shout out about that you've seen through the sort of first few rounds of free agency that have just stood out in your mind as being interesting ones for either good or bad reasons?
Well, I mean, I've been surprised with my own free agency, honestly. I didn't think I'd get any of the stuff that I've gotten.
Yeah, so do you want to talk about what you've done?
Yeah, I needed to replace Reggie Wayne because I traded him away, and then I realized I don't have a first-round pick next year, so I couldn't tank it down, start to rebuild the team. I was like, well, I've got to try and win because somebody will get a sweet first-round draft pick if I don't. Oh, shoot. I'm going to lose connection 1 sec. I'll be back in.
Sure. Okay. So whilst Jed is getting his connection back, I guess, Josh. So let's just talk about the Colts whilst he's off, and then we'll get his opinion. So
I was actually just getting ready to say the same because they have had a really good offensive free agency.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously traded Reggie Wayne, as he said, and then they followed that up by getting Percy Harvin, who I'm guessing is probably going to be his primary wide receiver this year.
Yeah, and he's honestly probably just a hair or a few notches below Reggie Wayne. I like a really big fan of Percy Harvin.
Yeah, and on a pretty solid deal actually. Sort of 5 years. He's only 25 years old as well, so he's going to be solid for that length. Then kind of followed up with, for me, some really interesting trades. So I guess the man we should be talking about in this free agency in terms of the most popular guy in free agency is this man, Brian Cushing. I think like 3/4 of the league put a bid in for him at one stage.
I saw that.
The list was just so long. I mean, I've never seen the table go that long in the game. It ran out of like length, more or less.
Yeah, I know. I saw that and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go start searching for everybody that's not Brian Cushing. So see what I can sneak through.
I mean, so the Colts obviously did fantastic there to pick him up. I mean, I guess what do you think GMs like about Brian Cushing that made him so popular in free agency?
I mean, that combination of speed, agility, and tackling, and not only that, the intelligence. Like, he's just a really good player. He's probably, 5-year contract. I'd say probably 2 years into that contract, his over. Just with the steady increases, he'll be an over 90 rated player.
Yeah. So I think we've got Jed back now. Jed, are you back online?
I am back. Yeah.
Cool.
Just lost connection there for a second.
We were just going through, obviously, Reggie Wayne and the Percy Harvin switch, which we liked. And we were just talking about Cushing, but we were interested to get your thoughts, really, on your signings. So you said, obviously, you can't rebuild next year. So therefore, you're going to go for it. And free agency's worked out all right for you so far. Oh, I think we've lost him again there. Okay. Okay, Josh, let's carry on. So, obviously, managed to bring in 2 elite tackles in Evans and Cherilus as well. So yep. Manning actually has a line in front of him now that's not too bad, to be fair. There's still a gap at guard, but I mean, it's looking in better shape than it has been for a few years now.
Yep, and I'm pretty sure that I think a few teams mentioned that they were cutting guards for cap space, so he might still have a shot at getting an elite one of those because I think he still has some cap space left. Yeah, he's still got about what's that, about 13 million in cap space left. So yeah, he could still do that if he wanted to. I mean, I think that there's still a little lacking on defense, but Manning can, with the players that he brought in, Manning has a potential to just outscore teams, and he was winning shootouts last season even with a diminished offensive line. So I think that it's funny. Noah and I were talking about this, how different teams have there's not as many personalities, but I think there are, and I think that the Colts are going to be a team where if you can't hit 30, you might lose, or if you can't hold them under 20, you might lose.
Yeah, I think so. And I think if we go back to the first season of the Colts with the previous GM, it was very much a case of they were a team that was definitely contending for a Super Bowl. Had the number 1 offense, but it was the defense that was letting them down, and that's been the story of the Colts since the league started. I guess Jed came in last year, made a few moves to try and adjust some of these things around. Didn't quite work, but this year, obviously, I would say that it's probably if you go to the offensive side, it's a bit like the NBA analogy of the Houston Rockets with James Harden, where it's just offense. Defense isn't that much of an issue. If we score, in terms of the Colts, like you said, if they score 30, 35 every single night, they're going to be tough to beat anyway, just because of the offensive ability. And that's kind of what I see here.
And he's shown that he definitely knows how to coach offense. For those listening who aren't in the college league, he took Utah and he has them averaging like 60 points a game or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, 570 yards. I'm back in, by the way. I think I'll be stable now.
Good timing.
But yeah, I'm hoping in year 2 with the Colts, I can do the same thing I did to Utah. I increased the average of Utah's offense 100 yards a game in one season. With
You've already got your bell.
Largely worse personnel. I mean, I have a lot younger team with Utah, but I've still got that monster quarterback who's a lot like Peyton Manning, honestly. So I'm hoping I can build a real similar offense.
Yeah, that's like you already have your bell in Peyton Manning, and you've got your wide receiver equivalent to Reggie Wayne. That's kind of a well done, by the way. Just kind of swap them out. He's a little less, but he's younger, so he'll probably catch up to him by the time he.
By the time he finishes that 5-year contract,
exactly.
I was surprised to get that for 10.5 for 5 years at a 25-year-old.
Yeah, no, I was surprised to see it too. And that was when I was like, all right, he's not blowing this team up. He's trying to be competitive.
Yeah, I thought I was getting for a second, but I was like, well, I've got way too good of an offense to do that. Like I can't give up on the team yet. I've still got a good QB, got a good running back, got good wide receivers. If I can figure out that line, that was the big problem with the offense last year is I couldn't get any running on the outside. Manning took too many sacks. Had a hard time getting the passing game going, but I think we fixed that, picking up both Charles and what's the other guy? Bird, yeah. We got 2 stellar tackles. I've got those good guards, and we lost Jeff Saturday to retirement, but center's kind of an easy spot to replace. So wasn't too worried about that. I was more worried about the edge protection that I just didn't have last year. I was trying to run a string of several tackles, and it just didn't work very well. We played well at home. We finished 8-8, and I think we went 6-2 at home, and we even had some upsets against some really good teams. But just couldn't.
Didn't you beat me by 1 point?
Yeah, I think I beat you by 1 point. Who else did I beat? I can't remember, but I beat another team that I was surprised I beat.
Evans, not Bird. It was Jari Evans. I was like, I know I messed that up.
Yeah, no, Evans and Charles. Yeah, and then I was surprised to get Cushing too, because everyone was going after him. I think he had like 16 offers or something.
Yeah,
we were talking about that.
Yeah, we said about 3/4 of the league were after him, I think. So, what's your view on Cushing? Why were you? Obviously, you won it. So why were you sort of looking to bring in Cushing? And
because I wanted a guy that's got a little bit of speed, and I like to build my defense kind of similar to how Denver does. I like to have guys that can play multiple positions. So I like to have safeties that can play linebacker and linebacker that can play safeties and move them around. So I like to have speed and agility. And I like to run a few different looks in the defense, so I'll probably play Cushing at a lot of middle linebacker. He might play some edge and like some 3-4 formations, and I might even throw him back to safety and move the free safety Mitchell to like a dime back situation in 3-3-5 or dime or nickel formation. So I've got some versatility in the defense, and that's what I've got to do because I don't really have like a complete star on the defense. I've got Cushing. He's about the best I'm going to get.
I would say he's about your star now.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to pick up another guy out of the draft. I'm really lacking in on the corners. That's going to be a struggle for us this year, I think. I haven't been able to find a corner that really is going to game break anything for me. Which I might be able to pick up in the draft, but I'm also missing, I only have a first-round draft pick this year, and then I don't pick again until round 5 or something. So,
yeah, and I mean, you have a really good draft pick, if I remember. You guys jumped quite far.
Yeah, I jumped all the way up to number 4.
Yeah, so you can certainly pick up a defensive star there at 4. I would say.
Yep.
Imagine.
Oh yeah. There's some linebackers. There's a good defensive tackle. I mean, if Terrell Pryor falls, I might consider that one, but I really do need defense.
Yeah, it just sucks because last year was the draft that had the top 10 cornerback. There's not a top 10 cornerback in this draft. There's some good ones, but
it's true. There's just not. And then next year I don't have a first round pick, so I'm not going to get a quarterback there either, unless I make some trades and get up in that draft or something. So I'm hoping Manning can just kind of go for a couple more years and not retire after this season. It's his last season of his contract. I did offer him an extension, and he didn't take it. So we'll see.
Yeah, man. We all thought legends play long, but Breeze just robbed us of that notion. So.
Well, he wanted to go out on top. It's obvious. He wanted to just finish, win the Super Bowl, no, he didn't win this year. What am I talking?
No, I think he was so frustrated at losing season to the Cardinals. He retired then and there. That's what I like.
Yeah, he was just like, well, we lost to the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Well, I'm done.
Either that, or he's gone to play in the XFL or something. That's why.
He's like, I only play for Super Bowls. If I'm not playing for Super Bowls, I'm done.
Yeah. No, it's been a really interesting off season for the Colts. You guys have had some fantastic signings, and I'm excited to see that offense work next year. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the Cardinals. That's somebody I haven't really paid attention to what they've been doing in free agency, but I kind of wonder if they're going to take a step up this year. Are they going to be able to return, or were they kind of just a one hit wonder?
I think they've made a step up. I'm
wondering how they're going to fill the rest of their roster. That's what I'm wondering. So I think they're at 28 players, and they're almost capped out.
Yeah, I mean they're 120 million, and they've got all their picks this year,
all
apart
their
from
picks,
round 5,
yeah.
So they can pick up 6 players there. So that'll probably fill them out. But I mean, I guess for me, the signings that they've made are really interesting ones, and brought in Langford pretty early on in free agency, and an elite defensive edge, really.
Yeah, he's a great player.
He's a really good player. And then brought in Greg Jennings as well. So for me, it's going to be interesting, as you said, Josh, to see how they fit it out. But if they can fit it out properly, that team is definitely a much, much better team than the one that went to the Super Bowl last year.
Yep. So I guess
and their starting 22 is pretty good. I mean, even though they're missing, they've got some holes, and they've got some holes in their line. But they've got good skill players. They're good on defense in the skill positions as well. They just really improved on defensive line. It'll be interesting to see if they improve. I mean, they were a wild card team. Let's see if they, compete for that bye week this year.
Yeah, it's maybe too early to tell with them as to where they'll finish, because, as you pointed out, Jed, that offensive line is just non-existent at the moment. That middle sort of linebacker position is non-existent.
And that was kind of where I was coming from. I was like, I don't know if 15 million is enough to build an elite offensive line, but maybe they can, because
don't know.
There's still a lot.
What I spent like 25 million on 2 tackles or something. So
exactly, and that's why I was like, oh man, they made some great signings, but they only have 2 guards.
Maybe they've got a trade or 2 coming.
Yeah, and they could. Off season's way far from being over.
Yeah.
Well, and they might hit and try and make some of those trades during the draft. I mean, that's when it seems like people get real excited about draft picks. So you might be able to pick up some decent players by people who want another scratch ticket.
I will take you guys can call them scratch tickets if you want, man. I will take all of your mid-round picks. I have in the 3 seasons I've been in this league, I've bombed on 1 pick. So send them all. I will take them.
There you go.
Yeah, I gotta focus on keeping more of my draft picks because I don't have many.
Yeah, I'm done with that. I've been my cupboard's clean, so I need to stop trading.
Yeah, I think it depends, to be honest with you, on draft picks. I think it depends on how your scouting goes. Because we have found last year that some of the scouting was well off for us. So there was guys who were drafted after. I think we took Nelson in the 2nd round. I think it was. There were guys who went after that who were much better quality than Nelson, because our scouting was so off, because our coaches were so bad. So we've actually invested a lot in our coaches this year. So it really depends. If you don't do that, I suppose, then you've got the draft. You've got free agency as well. It's a little bit of a luck of the draw, I think, in terms of how your scouting looks and whether you pick that well. Because I think Josh,
my scouting was bad in the draft last year. I think my defensive tackle, my scouts told me he was going to be an ace, Igbinosan, and he might at some point in his career, but he's going to take a lot of training.
Yeah.
And I think he's right. That's definitely one of the places in the game where coaches really matter because, like, I don't have after I got past the third round, all the players I had actually scouted were pretty much gone.
Yeah.
But my coaches, the number ratings that they give are pretty dead on, and I think at least every season, each one of them has been correct about one of their recommendations. So like I kind of always kind of look at those guys first because again, I think the only draft pick I've bombed on is a guy that I just cut was a defensive tackle, and like I really bombed on him. He was like a 68.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I've done in this beginning of coach hiring is I made sure to hire 2 decent offensive defensive coaches, and my GM actually is still as good as he was. My GM's actually really good, so I'm hoping my scouting this year will be better.
Yeah, I think my GM's like 5 stars in scouting. Like I'm pretty sure it's like fully
3.5,
fully
4,
maxed out. Yeah, mine's like fully maxed out in scouting. So and again, like I should listen to him more because the first season he recommended Pat Devlin, and that could have been my backup quarterback.
So let's just bring it back here. So we've talked about a couple of teams that have done well. We've also talked, Jed, about your Colts that have done well as well. So I mean, interesting thing is that we've now got to a situation with free agency, one more sim left, then the draft. But we've got teams now who are probably sitting on a lot of cap, teams that are not sitting on a lot of cap. And we've got a couple of teams that are sort of in that middle where they probably all have a little bit at the end of the draft. So, I mean, I guess interested to get your thoughts in terms of teams like, we've got the Seahawks, the Raiders, the Giants, the Dolphins, the Jaguars, all sitting with quite a lot of amount of cap now. Do you think they're just holding it for maybe next year or for the rest of the free agency? What do you think's the view now in terms of the landscape of the league? Because there will be teams now who literally will not be able to sign anyone else.
Yeah, I honestly don't know because every sim I kind of peek into the free, like the who's making offers, and I try to look at each team just to kind of get an idea of how they're trying to build their teams, and it seems like I think a lot of GMs were happy with their team and just wanted to plug in holes and just keep it moving. So, I guess that, that's a strategy. We'll see how that goes. And as for like some teams, like I'm genuinely baffled by the Seahawks. I'm not going to critique their offseason, but if I had 60 million in cap space, I think I would have signed at least one really big player, but I don't know, do you?
Yeah, and Jed, what are your thoughts in terms of the league landscape now with teams with huge amounts of cap and teams with probably a bit tighter now going into the draft at the end of next week?
I think everybody has a lot more flexibility. I mean, when I came in last year with the Colts, I think going into free agency, I had like 7 million in cap or something. And it was nice to offload a lot of stuff and get a lot of weight. And I think a lot of teams have that. And so I think it's just going to really make for some fun times ahead in the league.
It's kind of funny because last season, every team was cap strapped and we were all just like, oh my God, how are we going to live? and now we have teams rolling, 60 million over. So,
yeah. And then the cap's going up. Remember, the cap's going up again. So we're going to eventually get to 150 million. So
so I think we'll have a couple seasons where people, like I was a little surprised at how apprehensive I felt like free agency was a little bit this year. Like I said, a lot of the contracts I signed, I was really surprised. I thought people were going to give those players much more money. And so I think there's a little bit of a keep everything the same, but I think in the coming seasons ahead, we'll start seeing some people give some players some real big contracts that will kind of surprise all of us.
Yeah, well, I think some teams are just going to have to because, I mean, like, if you look at, the Saints, and I'm just going to take those 2 top teams, the Saints and the Broncos, for example. Like, I just don't think you can beat those teams by only building internally. I just don't think it's possible.
Not unless you're managing to pinch or drive prices up for them. I guess, interesting because I mean, we obviously, the Lions in particular, my team, we were competing with some of the guys the Saints wanted, and the Saints won because they just simply offered more money. But for me, I guess the interesting thing is that it felt like it was only us and the Saints in for a lot of these guys. So either way, it was going to go to us or to the Saints, and whoever basically ended up paying the most money for some of these guys.
Part of me wonders if, just because even though our chat's active, a lot of GMs are active in it. How many GMs are kind of aware of the other things you can do within the game, like the fact that you can make as many bids as you want to, like you take the risk of more of them signing. But I remember the first off season, where a bunch of us were like, wow, like you can actually do that, when we saw KW do it. So I think that there might still be just a general learning curve for the league.
Yeah, that's what I was nervous about this morning, why I needed help with my sim, because I was afraid that I was going to sign a bunch of players and go over cap.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw last year, you said KW, but KW obviously had the backfire of that last year. You obviously can do that. Yeah. And the Saints had a little bit of a backfire this year, although they've sorted it now. I mean, that these guys can just sign immediately. So, if you take the Panthers, for example, and their wonderful running back situation where they managed to bring in McFadden 40, and I think they may have had another guy, if I remember.
Yeah, they moved the third one.
Yeah, they moved the third one. So, they had 3 running backs then. It cost them $15 million between the 3 of them. So, in last year, when the cap was less, it was a lot more of an issue for them.
Yeah, but see, I think about it this way. Worst case scenario, you just trade those guys for picks.
Yeah.
Like, someone's going to want them, but, people,
yeah, because both those running backs are on decent contracts as well. I mean, I think they're at $5 or $6 million, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the Saints,
it looks fine now, where we've got more cap to play with. But last year, if you take back the Panthers, there was not really any trade opportunities for them. There was no one who really had $5 million around.
Yeah, nobody. You had to get creative.
We were looking at people were looking at cuts and things to free up cap to get that $5 million.
Oh, yeah, that's what I did, just to sign a couple players that I actually needed, because I had guys that weren't going to play on way too big of contracts.
Yeah.
Where, looking at the league now, we might have to renegotiate the CBA. You must spend at least 80% of your cap.
It's interesting. It does seem like we're gonna go into the season with a lot of teams below cap, like significantly below cap, and maybe they're preparing for next year and want to start seeing how things play out before they really spend. But I do think in the next couple of years, we're going to start seeing, like $20 million contracts and stuff.
Yeah. And I wouldn't blame a guy for looking at their roster, looking at some of the other teams and going, my window's not open yet. I'm just going to hold on to I'm going to hold on to this.
And I guess the interesting thing as well for me is that's also going to shape it is we're obviously going to have probably, I think next free agency is probably the last bumper one from the start of the league. So that'll be the last one where all the players who were on those contracts come off, and then it's open market basically then. But the other factor is that will be interesting is that there's going to be more players in the league. So teams are going to have more squad. I think over the next sort of probably 2 to 3 seasons, we're going to get to a point, I think, where teams are going to actually actively have a practice list, which we haven't seen from the beginning of the league.
I'm really looking forward to that. I like the development aspect of teams, and cut a guy from my practice squad, pick up a guy from Arizona's practice squad.
Yeah,
exactly. Goes on to be my number one guy. That's story building type of stuff. It's fun.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing that develop as well, as the cap goes up and rosters get slightly bigger. People have more of these guys sort of shipping around, and more of these sort of lower management moves. That'll be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
KW will have somewhere to put his 7 wide receivers.
Yeah, exactly, and his tight end. So we'll see. But no, it's been great to have you both on and talk about free agency. Obviously, we've got one more to go, and then we've got the draft on Friday. Perhaps we'll come back during draft time and have a little bit of a chat about teams and players and things. But for now, it's been great to have you both on. Thanks for that, and best of luck with the rest of the off season.
Yeah, appreciate it.